So, one question I get all the time, being an evangelical Christian who voted for Trump originally, but who eventually left the Republican Party, is why can't Christian people see Trump for who he is? Why are they so smitten with a man who represents everything they oppose morally? And I actually have an answer. And this answer takes us back to the root of our darkest sins as a nation: greed and racism. Three times in our nation's history, there's been an outcry from the Black community for justice and change. And three times, the white Christian community largely has rejected that cry: the abolition movement, the civil rights movement, and the George Floyd protests. We love to talk about the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of slavery, but what we forget is that slave-holding Christians did not repent of that wicked institution. They lost the war. The same is true in the civil rights era. White Christians did not willingly repent of Jim Crow segregation. Far from it. They were forced to integrate and continued to resist long after the civil rights laws were passed. What the what the Christian community failed to do in both cases was to listen to the bitter heart cry of the Black community. Fast forward to George Floyd. There were more protesters in 2020 than even in the civil rights movement. But what was the response from the white Christian community? Hardness of heart. Rather than banning the war on drugs and mandatory minimums that sent millions of young Black men to jail for petty drug crimes, we banned CRT, a theory that was never taught in our schools in the first place. The anti CRT movement was never about critical race theory. It was a way to shift the narrative, a way for Republicans to stop backpedaling and to go on the offense. Rather than listening to the grievance of the Black community, we invented a grievance of our own, which is Trump's bread and butter. And the George Floyd protests were God's final test. If we can't change our hearts towards the suffering of the Black community after 400 years, how much time do we need? So God has caused a spiritual blindness to settle on these people. What was the first thing that happened after they rejected the deafening cry for justice in 2020? January 6, 2021. Trump has completely perverted and reversed the justice narrative. There is a two-tier justice system, he claims, but not against the Black community. It's against him and against the quote patriots and hostages and warriors who stormed the Capitol. God has given us 400 years to change our hearts toward the Black community and to seek justice, but instead, the white Christian community as a whole has chosen racism and greed, which are both personified in Trump. Essentially, they've made their choice and God has given it to them. And that's why they can't see, because they've chosen not to see.